the Code, Deploy, Go Live podcast, episode 7, with Julie Turner and me, Andrew Connell. This episode is available as a video on our YouTube channel and in your podcast app of choice, linked in the show notes. Today, Julie and I are going to reflect on some of the news from the Microsoft Build conference held in early May 2025 in Seattle, Washington. I spent over 50 hours watching the sessions, recording announcements, and picking through the code repos, all for you. And I'm going to take what I learned and share what's new with Microsoft 365 and Microsoft Azure. And I know this is going to be a heck of a shocker, and agents. So let's get started. This was recorded live June 3rd, 2025. Julie, welcome back to the United States.
Thanks, Andrew. I'm coming back. Not a little worse for the wear, I guess. It was an absolutely amazing week. I went out to visit Derek Cash-Peterson, who is my colleague, and his husband, Patrick Cash-Peterson. They both work for some praxis, and I visited them out in Iceland. And then Derek and I were going to the European Collaboration Summit in Dusseldorf, Germany. And so we went from Iceland to Dusseldorf, had an amazing few days with the European contingent of the Patterns and Practices team, and just meeting up with a whole bunch of, just people, hallway conversation. It was absolutely amazing, like really, really great conference. I can't say enough about it. We had a wonderful time. Unfortunately, I believe the woman in the seat next to me on the flight home was sick, and I caught her flu and spent a good 24 hours literally sleeping Sunday to Monday. I'm better now, but, still a little under the weather. So not as sharp as I might normally be, but luckily this is your show. So yay, I just get to listen and add commentary.
So two things. One, this is our show. I'm going to run this episode for you. So you're not going to have to speak as much because you're under the weather.
You know what I mean. Know what I mean.
Where you normally say sharing is caring, but this lady was a bit of a jerk.
I wish I had realized that she wasn't. I think I did subconsciously. So like in hindsight, I can go, oh, she was sick. But if I had realized it in the moment, I had a mask in my bag and I would have worn it if I had made the connection. So that's like, I'm really like mad at myself. I'm like, God damn it. I should have just put that mask on when I've like recognized that she didn't seem great, whatever.
I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, I'm glad you're back. The conference looked awesome. It sounds like you had a great time.
It was really, really good. How about you? What did you do while I was gone?
I had a few people that were telling me, sending me a text like going, your ears must be burning right now. I'm like, I don't know why. We just had a great conversation with Julie and like, I got to share something with you. I'm like, not right now. I'm a little busy right now. I will come back to you, but I'm looking forward to catching up with Julie. And we knew we were going to speak on stuff. So we knew we were going to record yesterday. And I was like, timing is tight. And you're like, flu kicked me in the face. Can we, my words. Good. And so we pushed it a day, but we're looking forward to this. This can be a lot of fun for me. Since we last got together, let me do for me. And then there's one for both of us. For me, I'm in the last week of teaching my 8-week Teams App Dev Accelerator, which I'll mention when we get into the details of the show. I had a massive curveball thrown at me about 60% of the way through it. During the Build conference, when Microsoft released a few things that, while I knew that they were some of them I knew that they were coming, but I also didn't realize the impact of what they were. So I have been frantically over the last 3 weeks, kind of on the fly, like consuming a ton of content from the Build conference to better explain how stuff is positioned with my students. At the same time, they're kind of seeing, let's see how Andrew learns in real time, because I would tell them something on Monday and I come back on Wednesday and I'm like, so what I told you on Monday, I have a different opinion now that I see this. And then there was also stuff the week prior or 2 weeks prior at the M365 conference when there were some other things that were announced that also threw a curveball at me. So I've been frantic trying to get caught up on stuff. I feel like I have a pretty good my arms around it now, but at the same time, I have a SharePoint Framework Accelerator that is starting at the end of July. I'm going to be teaching my Copilot declarative agent workshop live workshop again in July. So I'm trying to get things kind of set up to go through into launch and start telling people about it and be able to set up registrations. It's been a lot.
Yeah.
So
sounds awful.
But I mean, it is what it is. It's kind of one of those things, like it's stuff that I needed to do. And it's stuff that, you and I are both going to be at the TechCon 365 conference in Seattle the week of June 23rd, I think.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that one. I got a new session, so I'm psyched.
Well, that's kind of how I am too, because like I've got to rebuild all my demos for new tooling and explain stuff. So I have like 2 workshops I have to completely rebuild, other sessions I got to rebuild. It's just like, it's got to get done. I just didn't like to do it on the duress. The other big update we got that's about you and me is that, hey, this is the first time we're recording since we went live with the podcast.
I know. It's
So
so exciting to know that we're gonna drop, like, on the reg now, and, like, people are gonna yeah, I'm excited. I'm
yeah,
excited. I got a lot of great feedback while I was at ECS too, people being like, "Hey, I can't wait. Your podcast is great. Congratulations on it." So that's been really nice. And ironically, I've gotta add this because I was kinda blown away. So, because my husband shares my YouTube, like, login on our big TV and all he does is watch YouTube, and so he's going to see this, so hi, husband. Um, he
hi, Julie's husband.
he he loved the cartoon thing you did. He loved that, and I figured he would think that was the dumbest thing ever, and he thought that was just great, and we should do that all the time, and I'm like, "Not sure what that says about how you think about me, but okay, wonderful."
Hey, you know what? That's fun. Yeah. So for those of you who don't know what this is, if you haven't seen this, uh, what I've done is, we said when in our first few episodes that we're primarily like YouTube and audio podcasts. You'll find us on LinkedIn. You'll find us on Blue Sky. Kind of off the cuff, I was like going, you know what? I got an idea. So I created an Instagram account for the podcast, a TikTok account for the podcast, and I took what the tool that we use to go through and to build out the podcast and do a lot of the stuff. It will do, they call it magic clips, but what it does, it will spit out both either vertical or horizontal videos, either 16:9 or 9:16 video of parts of the show that we can then take and then repurpose as like shorts. So to be completely candid, I'm doing this to try and let people know about a new episode that comes out. So we're trying to go through and add more of this. And they have this cool little filter where you can choose like 6 different options. And I was like, hey, look, we can look like the Simpsons. So I'm going to just choose this one. And I'm not going to tell Julie what I'm doing. And I'm just going to go through and ship it. And she's like, don't
Was
give
like,
Andrew, you're like, don't give Andrew the new tool, the tools here. I'm like going, oh no, you have these tools too, but I'm still going to do it. You should see some of the other filters we have.
"Boy, here we go. Keep
We'll
it a
see.
secret. I love it.
Yeah.
I will be shocked. It'll be fun."
I will surprise you. So yeah. So and again, anyway, for if this is the first or second or third episode that you're hearing from us, welcome. Make sure you subscribe. We're both on YouTube and we're on LinkedIn and we're on all the podcatcher apps as well that you find us. Please reach out. Let us know what you think about the show. Suggestions, constructive criticism. Please give us a good rating on like Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Like, subscribe on YouTube. It helps us reach more people. And it just helps us grow the show. So we're really looking forward to this. We're really excited about it, and I'm really like excited for the fact that we shipped all of this at the same time. So
Yep.
at any rate,
Super exciting.
are you ready to
Yes.
dive in today?
Yeah, let's dive in. Let's dive in.
Okay, so first thing we're going to do here, first segment we like to do with this, for those of you new to us, we like to cover the news. Julie, you've got one bit for us, and then I've got like one with a massive asterisk next to it. So I'll let you go.
Yeah. I wanted to throw out there our, show friend, Stefan Bauer built a little Visual Studio Code plugin that he's calling the old fashioned CSS formatter. And, again, this is going to be for the designers out there that, would use this. This is not something I personally would need, but I definitely want to give it a shout out because it's a really cool tool. Essentially, it's an extension that allows you to sort and organize your CSS properties using like the way that CSS should be sorted and organized and indented. And so it just sort of takes the mess that you get and organizes it and sorts it and makes it look gorgeous and easy to like refine and look through, and does the nesting that you can now do with CSS, which used to be on a Sass only thing, but you can now do it with CSS. So it's just a really cool tool for those that do a lot with CSS. And so I wanted to give that tool a shout out. So
Awesome.
that's my news.
So good job on the tool. This is a guy you're going to probably hear us talk about a good bit on
Yeah.
the show, throughout the show, because he's got great guy, wicked smart. He's my go-to guy when I need to talk about like the technical side of design,
Yeah.
and having to get them sort some things out that I can't figure out. And like, dude, what do you think on this? I want to get your opinion before, like when I hear something that sounds a little weird, I want to make sure I get your take on it because I trust what you say. So you're going to hear us mention him a good bit. And I saw that I was just jumping on trying to find him to make sure we had the links for his like profile and stuff. So we'll put those in the show notes. Again, those of you new to the show, we put all of our show notes in the show notes. And then we also send it out as an email so you can find out when a new episode comes out with all the links. So if you're
definitely go to the website, get signed up on the newsletter so you get those. Yeah, that's important.
The links for where you can find us and everything, they're all in the show notes. So anyway, he has on his GitHub profile, it still points to Twitter/X. So I don't know if he's also, I know he's also on other platforms. I
He
wonder what his
is.
preference
He's
is.
on. Yeah, I think he still checks X, but he's on Blue Sky, LinkedIn. Yeah, I mean all of the places you can find him.
I have to, all right, Alex says, add a little to do here to find other.
Yeah,
Got
I
it.
can definitely share those. I
Sweet.
got
Awesome.
that part. I can
Thanks.
do that to do.
We're building a podcast on the fly. You think the seven, here we go.
We're
We're flying
amazing.
the seven, I'll fly the 747. You put the wings
Right,
together.
as I put the wings on.
Yeah. All right.
Landing gear, we'll think about that later.
So while I go through, we don't need the landing gear till later. This is just in time
No.
development. We're testing in production.
Yeah, we've
If you
got
don't,
45 minutes for landing gear. We're fine.
exactly. And if you don't mind, before we get to that 45 minutes and after you grab his links, would you mind grabbing me a coffee and bring it up to the front of the lane for a sec?
Yeah, I need another one, so I'll
Okay.
get on that. Yeah,
let's
go
start the
ahead. You talk. I'll be back.
So my only link that I have are my show notes for it. So this show is a little bit different because it's our first live show and we actually haven't recorded in about a month. And so I was like, I don't want to go back and grab a bunch of news from the last time we recorded because it's no longer news. And frankly, the big thing that's happened in our space we're not just about Microsoft development being Azure and 365. We're really about everything, but that's a big, strong focus and where I think the majority of our at least initial audience is. The Build Conference, Microsoft Build Conference was in the early part of May. So tons of news came out about that. And then right after that, essentially all of Microsoft says we're going on vacation for a week because that's what they do. They work around conferences and they say, don't talk to me because build's coming. And then build comes and it's like, talk to me. And then they go like, all right, we're overworked and everything. We need to take a vacation now. Don't talk to me again for another week. And it's like, I have questions. So anyway, so I'm going to just say that like, in terms of like the news, I'll explain this in a bit, but like, we're going to have the show notes are going to be a collection of a couple links, but everything we're going to talk about is around build. And well, you know what? Let's just leave it at that. And I will give you one link and say like, go here and where you can get everything instead of giving you a bazillion links in two places. So with that, why don't we jump into the meat of the show? She likes that idea. She likes that idea. She coughs. I got you. I got you back.
Thank you.
Yeah. Screw the flu.
Yeah, don't like it. Not a fan.
All right. So would not recommend 0 of 1 star. Would not go back.
Yes.
Got it. Okay. So, we're going to talk about Build 2025. And this is not just for 365 developers. This is really for everybody. There's a lot of stuff that Microsoft announced. There's some really cool stuff. There's some things that I had a newsletter about this and I said, like, this is the good, the bad. And I didn't say the ugly, but there's some like fugly stuff that I really was upset about and disappointed about. We don't have to go too much there. There's a part of this where I've got like my general takeaway. And I think that maybe you and I can do another episode about this in the future.
Okay.
And maybe we get some other people involved in it as well. Maybe something we do live at the when we're in Seattle for the conference and we can actually record for the first time IRL in real life.
Oh my God, that might be so cool.
But so essentially what this is that I spent a solid like 50 plus hours watching over 55 sessions, keynotes, recordings from YouTube, from sessions on YouTube, reading announcements, reading articles referenced in the announcements to documentation, looking at code repos. And my primary motivation was trying to figure out what I think Microsoft 365 full stack developers should know from the Build 2025 conference. That was in early May. I started doing this in 2024 Build, and then I did it for Ignite. And I think I'm going to keep doing it going forward. It's good. It's a good exercise, at least for me, and other people have seemed to get benefit from it. But I have this giant recap post on my website that I published. The link to that will be in the show notes. That is going to be the prime. I'll put 2 links in the show notes. That is one, or really, I guess I'll put 4 links in the show notes. That is one is my big recap post. And while I say it's for 365 developers, full stack developers, there's a lot of Azure stuff in there because I do think that the direction that Microsoft 365 is going is you need to pay attention to the stuff that we have over in Azure to be able to leverage that inside of our solutions we built for 365. Again,
I think that's always been the case. I might argue that's always been the case.
It's always been the case. I would argue what my point with saying that is that I think it's really is a forcing function now. It's even becoming more of the case and more important.
All right.
That's something that I want to talk about in another episode in the future.
Okay.
But so I'll dive into that. There are links for the following. As I said, there's a recap post that's like, I think reading time is like 26 some odd minutes. I collected it's like close to 60 different sessions, on-demand recordings, demo videos, and keynotes that are all in a curated YouTube playlist that is also linked there. So if you want to just say like, how do I exclude the stuff that's not interesting to me, or does at least not related to directly to my job? If you're like us and who are target audiences for this, like you probably don't care about what stuff there isn't new in Windows that you can use to build out apps. So that kind of stuff's not there. But I put in a lot of that stuff into and I put all of the stuff that I think you are interested in that playlist. So it's a good place to go. I love doing that because it allows me to take my YouTube premium subscription. I can download it to my iPad. I'm looking forward to, I've got 2 West Coast trips in June and keep binging and watching that stuff. The last 2 links that I'm going to include in the show notes, the link to the build website, and where you can still see some of their recordings if there's more videos you want to watch, and the link to the book of news, which is think of it like an online newsletter or an online publication that's not updated, but it's a great place to say like, what is everything being announced and kind of the starting point when you walk into the conference. So if you were going to the conference and someone gave you like a little pamphlet and said, here's what you need for the whole show, it's like the program to going into a sporting event. So
Mhm.
I think it's super useful. So got a bunch of stuff I'm going to run through here. We're going to try and keep this on a nice little time box, and we'll talk about M365 dev. We'll talk about some Copilot stuff, some Azure stuff, etc. I'm going to let you interrupt me whenever you want to interrupt me, Julie. So I'm going to keep an eye on your facial expressions, and you just like, what did you want to say? Like going
Got
on
it.
it. Otherwise,
Got it.
I'm going to spare you from having to talk because you're on the mend.
Thank you.
But feel free to interrupt me as much as you like. I usually don't have to say that. I never have to say that because you're good.
Just gonna
You're good
say
at interrupting.
I'll take it. I'll dive in.
That's not a back-ended a compliment
I
either.
know.
The reason I wanted to do this podcast with Julie is because I know she will call me on stuff and not like, and she'll have questions. It's intentional. That's not me putting a slight.
I knew.
Okay. So let's talk first about probably the biggest thing that happened, I think, in the 365 dev space. And that is Microsoft took the Teams Toolkit for Visual Studio Code, the extension that we have, and it's what we use to build in the past. It's what we use to build apps for Microsoft Teams. We also had the ability over time, they added the ability to build Office add-ins, also using the Teams Toolkit. You may look at that and kind of like squint your eyes like, that's a little weird to use the Teams Toolkit to build apps for Office. And it's like, well, because it was originally a Teams Toolkit and then they added this capability from something else. So it's already there. And it's like, okay, I get it. It's kind of growing organically. And then last year, they gave us the ability to build custom agents for Microsoft 365 Copilot, being either declarative agents or custom engine agents. So cool. Well, Microsoft said, we're going to rename it. And it's like, what are you going to rename it to? The new name for the Teams Toolkit, which used to be called, which also was known as the TTK, is now called the Microsoft 365 Agents Toolkit, or for short, ATK. There was a CLI that was involved that we had for the TTK. There's also a CLI that's involved for the ATK. If you had the TTK installed in Visual Studio Code, you open up Visual Studio Code and it automatically replaces itself with the Agents Toolkit because it is the same extension. It's just been rebranded, new logo, new name, some new documentation, templates have changed, the menus have changed, but it's the same thing. If you look at the ID of the actual extension, it's the same. I was super disappointed with this because now, if you're going to go through renaming exercise, why don't you take advantage of it and really rename it to what it should be? And I think that the name for it, a lot of people say it was just a name. Who cares? Like, well, if somebody new is coming to the platform and they say, I want to build Office add-ins, you're going to use the Agents Toolkit. They're going to be like, I don't want to do anything with AI. Like, oh no, it doesn't matter. But I want to build, you're going to use the Agents Toolkit to build an Office add-in. Like, so I want to build something for Word that is just going to help me like maybe grab some content from some other REST API or in Excel to have a custom function. They create an agent. No, you're creating an add-in. We're just going to use the Agents Toolkit to do it. Well, what if I was going to build a tab for a Teams app or a bot or something like that? You're still going to use the Agents Toolkit. Why?
Yeah.
It's funny as I talked to somebody at Microsoft about this and I asked them, I was like, this name is stupid. And they're like, oh, we think people are going to understand. It's going to make great and everything. And I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? Watch this. So I put a poll on LinkedIn and I was like, what should it be? Should it be the Agents Toolkit? Should it remain the Teams Toolkit? Or should they have called it the Microsoft 365 developers toolkit, or something else. Now, I don't have hundreds and hundreds of people that have responded, but it still shows over 88% of the people so far, as of the time of the recording, are still saying it should be the developers toolkit, and 3% are saying the new name makes sense. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying I'm right. I am, but I'm not saying I'm right. I'll let the LinkedIn poll decide for yourself.
We could guess who those 3% are, but we won't.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, one of them works for Microsoft, but all the other Microsoft people actually voted for it should have been the developers toolkit.
That's what I'm implying without
So
implying. But now I've said it, so I guess it doesn't matter.
that's okay. Yeah. It's frustrating. And some of the templates changed. And probably the biggest change when you get into it, there was a change related to the Microsoft 360, the bot framework. If you were building bots and like a chat bot, and you used, which you use to build both extensions, message extensions, and chat bots, we used to use the bot framework v4 um, and or the Teams AI library. I'll get to that in a minute. But
Mhm.
they released a new thing that they teased out at Ignite 2024 called the Microsoft 365 Agents SDK, different from the toolkit. So it's not tooling, it's an SDK. And this SDK is effectively Bot Framework v5. They say it's GA. I generally like the approach they've gone with this because it does seem they've taken advantage, unlike what the Agents Toolkit guys did. They've taken advantage of the fact that, hey, we're building something new. Let's rethink this and let's come up with something that's more logical for today's terms. And they've done that. The part I don't like about it is that the templates that we have in the new toolkit, they are a mix of using the Agents Toolkit and using the bot framework, or using parts of the Agents Toolkit that look like they were just copied from the bots framework. They said at the conference that the Agents SDK is GA, but the more I play with it, the more it feels like it's closer to the release candidate or beta experience. There's 3 SDKs. There's a .NET, a Python, and a JavaScript one. The .NET one is documented. The other 2 are not.
Yeah, that doesn't sound GA to me.
I do like it, but I don't like what I've seen. I'm really disappointed so far. So I have a bunch of questions into the team and be like, hey guys, what's up? So that's a big one. All these changes I'm talking about too. This was a lot of fun because literally this all happened on a Monday and everyone's like, in my class was like, I can't do my homework. And I'm like, crap, what did they do? And I looked at the templates. I'm like, you can't do your homework. Guys, how does this work? And I'm like, I needed time to figure this out because it's the first time I'm seeing it too.
Yeah, that's
So
not fun.
one thing related to this was the Teams AI library. Now, I don't remember if we talked about this before, but the
I
Teams,
don't think so.
yeah, I don't think we did.
I don't think so. I mean, we
So,
have, but we haven't here.
right. The team, yeah, a call that we just got out of was, won't share
Mhm.
everything in that
Oh,
one, but
yeah. No.
the Teams AI library V1, which was available to us for the last year or two, this was used if you wanted to create a chat bot and you wanted to leverage an LLM to help you, number one, deduce user intent, and number two, come up with a plan. And that plan that the LLM would generate would be returned back to the Teams AI library. And their library, I'm oversimplifying it, but their library would basically let you say, this action maps to this code, and this action maps to this code. And here are the custom instructions. And so effectively, it's making it easier for me to build the system prompt that's going to be sent over to the LLM, plus the user's prompt and potentially any additional data I want to add to augment the prompt itself using like the retrieval augmented generation, the RAG pattern. And then the response I get back from the LLM is a very specific JSON structure that the library understands and maps it to the things I've defined in the project and the code that I've written. Okay, so that's like what used to be.
Okay.
Well, the Teams AI library team decided out of the blue about 2 weeks before build, without telling anybody, from what I can understand at Microsoft, or at least the reactions I'm getting from people at Microsoft when I ask them questions, and they have this look on their face, it's a little bit of surprise and a little bit of frustration. They're kind of looking at this like they've released V2 without telling anybody they were doing it after the people that announced the Agents SDK back at Ignite last year implied, maybe not explicitly, but they implied the Teams AI library was going to be part of the Agents SDK, which would make sense. But these guys, they released this V2. And at first, when they released it, it was not clear that it was a preview of V2. They just released it as V2. So I freaked out about it because I'm like, you announced this on a Monday and I'm literally teaching this on a Tuesday of how to do Teams AI library V1. The thing that's frustrating about it to me is that these guys look like they've gone rogue. They've built their own CLI. They've built their own project templates. They had stuff in their documentation that's not there anymore because I called them out in their issue list. And I'm like, you guys said something here, like being almost combative with the toolkit guys and saying, don't come to us for support for the toolkit. We're different. I was like, man, you guys are just transparently not getting along. This is ridiculous. They pulled that out.
Yeah.
But go look in the issues
Yeah.
list. You'll see an issue from me and you see where I got a screenshot of it before they pulled it.
Yeah.
It's frustrating because they even almost acknowledge that they've gone rogue, because they even show you we've built commands that will add toolkit stuff like the environment variables and the environment files and the project files for the toolkit into this thing to make it work with the Teams Toolkit. And it's like, why didn't you guys just play nice with the toolkit and the Agents SDK and not give us yet something else? Not to mention, why the hell did you build your own Microsoft Graph SDK inside of it when we already have a Graph JavaScript SDK that the Graph team maintains?
Yeah. I don't know. I have nothing good to say about how confusing this landscape is. If you're
I
not
don't
in
either.
it deeply like you are, I find it inaccessible.
I forced myself to sit on my thumbs and to tape my mouth shut for 2 weeks when I saw them do this. And I'm like, I will wait till build and I will wait to see what you say publicly and how you message this. And then build came out and I'm like, I'm even more confused. I'm
Yeah.
pissed. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm going back and forth with the product group, with the Teams group and their, with the Teams AI library group and their repo, asking them questions. Frankly, the answers I'm getting I'm confused by as much as I had questions, and then they let me answer your questions. I'm like, okay, now I have more questions. So at any rate, that's another big thing.
It feels like spaghetti to me.
It, it is. It's clear now what they're doing. I understand what they're doing. I just personally, I think this is a terrible idea, but that's just my opinion. We can dig into that probably not more another episode, but we need to move on and cover a lot more stuff. Big stuff around declarative agents. I'll do some of this stuff kind of rapid fire. Please, if you got a question, Julie, just fire it back at
Yeah.
me.
No, I will.
So rapid fire around declarative agents, got some improvements here. First of all, they took the connectors concept we used to call Microsoft Graph connectors that have been that way for years. They've been renamed to Copilot connectors. There's also a template for creating a connector in the Agents Toolkit. We didn't have one before. We had to write our own code to do all that. So
Yeah,
that
I'm happy about that. I'm not mad about that. I am a little irritated about the rename because that's just such a branding rename, because the connectors are helpful for search because that's how you can create custom search verticals. And so the people, not to go on a wicked tangent, but the people who are like, oh, well, search is dead because we have Copilot now, so we won't need search anymore. I'm like, wait, what? Like, how do you not fundamentally understand how this shit works? But whatever, let's put that aside. But the fact that the graph connectors are the way to ingest content from an external system and create it as a search vertical that can be very powerful creating search solutions. To rename it Copilot connectors, again, similar to the rename from Teams Toolkit to Agents Toolkit, although in my humble opinion, Teams Toolkit needed to be renamed. It's just not. The Agents Toolkit would not have been the way to go. This
100%.
graph connector to Copilot connector, it's just obfuscating the fact that it is more useful than just for Copilot. So you lose that whole visibility in the ecosystem around how powerful this could be outside of just Copilot. So for the people who are not adopting Copilot right yet, which are a significant more larger group of people than Microsoft would like to think, they're losing the visibility of this great piece of functionality. And I think that's a big shame.
I got nothing to add to that because I think you said it perfectly. I agree.
Great.
The other stuff that we had that was around declarative agents that we have available, I think it's today or it's coming soon, is new capabilities. So you can have capabilities like data from a connector, data from SharePoint, a SharePoint site collection, a SharePoint site, a SharePoint list or library, or a file in SharePoint or in OneDrive. So you can get that granular. Web search. And then what else did we have? We had one or two other capabilities. Oh, code interpreter, where it will write Python for you to like show some data in a graph that you have returned from your prompt, and designer. So it uses Microsoft Designer to create AI generated designs. We have new capabilities for things like people. So I can do like people search inside of it. We can have email. So it'll look at your different email as well. two things that I thought were really, really cool with it. One of them is around using a new language to write your declarative agents called TypeSpec. So think of TypeSpec. So today, if you do stuff with declarative agents, you would use a lot of JSON and a lot of YAML. And when I say a lot, it really depends on what you're building. But essentially, the declarative agent was a JSON file manifest that described here's the name, the description, the instructions, the capabilities, and the Microsoft calls them actions. The industry calls them tools of real-time APIs I can talk to and get data to pull them in. You would then have a manifest for your, it's called a plugins manifest, but now it's actually an actions manifest, or now the industry would call it a tools manifest. But of course, Microsoft has to have their own name for everything. Actually, sorry, Microsoft 365 has to have their own name for everything. Azure seems to be going along with the rest of the world. Yep, little pot shot there, guys. Hope you felt that in Redmond.
Teams team.
Teams team, hey, change notifications, no webhooks. No,
Planner plan.
People are just anyway. So you would write, the plugin manifest was also a JSON file, and then you would define in the manifest or in the main runtime, you would say like, what is the API? What is the underlying thing? Now that you've defined this action that I can do, how do I call it? And as of today in this episode, you would point to a open API descriptor document, so an OAD file, which is generally YAML, but it can be JSON. That essentially is, if you've heard of Swagger, it's basically a Swagger file. So it basically describes an API, what you can call, the parameters, what you get back, what objects you pass in, what objects you get back, just basically the whole schema for it. It can be a lot to write. So what Microsoft did is they use this language called TypeSpec. And what TypeSpec is, this is something that the Azure guys have been using for a while. TypeSpec allows you to use a strongly typed language to write your API, and it then will be compiled down to JSON and YAML and all that other stuff. So I like to look at it as, if you're familiar in the Azure space with ARM templates, Azure Resource Manager templates, we have something called Bicep. Bicep is a domain-specific language, a DSL, that keeps you from having to write those ARM templates, which are giant JSON files. And instead, you use a strongly typed language that has IntelliSense and documentation and type checking and all this other stuff baked into it, makes your life easier. TypeSpec is a DSL for writing OAD files, the descriptor documents for the endpoints, and all those manifest files we need for a declarative agent. It does improve your productivity. You don't have to use it, but it is a benefit to building these things out.
I have only seen the build episode on TypeSpec and a little demo when we were at Summit. But I have to say, having learned Bicep recently to be able to do CI/CD pipeline stuff, even though I didn't just know Bicep or take a course on Bicep or whatever, it's super intuitive. And the fact that you get that IntelliSense, it's like, why would I want to fight with a JSON file when I can guesswork my way through this Bicep file that's going to help me make sure I do things the right way? Yellow squiggle. Hey, I don't need that. That's what the message says. Okay, I'll remove that. I didn't realize I didn't need that. You know what I mean? Like, that seems helpful. Like, so even though people will be like, well, why do we need another language? I think that it's not something you're going to learn. It's something that you're going to be like writing your JSON to do these things. It feels very similar in the writing that, maybe I'm not saying this right, but essentially it's like you'll fall into it. It's going to be a language that you're just going to sort of start doing and just inherently learn as you go. It's not like, well, I have to go learn another language. It's going to be like, okay, here's a starting point. Oh, I need one of those. Let me paste it in. And oh, I see how I can make this the right thing because it's going to help you get there. Does that make sense?
Are you trying? Okay, I think I know what you're trying to say. Are you trying to say that once I start to get into it, it's intuitive?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I thought.
That's what I'm trying to say. Yes.
Yeah, there's a little bit of a learning curve, but it's not like learning TypeScript for the very first time.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
As I start to learn Bicep, it's like going, oh, I get this. Oh, variables, parameters, I'm used to that. Oh, so I need to create something. Oh, that's a resource. How do I create that? Oh, I create a resource. I give it a name and I say I'm using this API, and then I have a bunch of properties. I get that. Can I use that resource later? Yeah, you can. It's just got properties that outputs like, oh, okay, this is cool.
Right. It's that you will fall into it. It's not like, oh my God, I have to learn another language.
Yeah,
agreed.
That's
what I'm getting at.
I totally agree. So that's a big improvement to it. Another one that I'm really interested to see is that it's going to be in private preview. It's not there yet. is they are adding support. So today, when you have an action or a tool or skill or a plugin, whatever you can call it, today, when you have that, you define the operation, and then you map to a runtime. It's like, where do I go do the operation or the runtime, or where do I actually implement the operation? And that is the open descriptor, the OAD file that it's going to help you with. And that basically the orchestrator for Copilot says, I know how to go talk to that endpoint now through this OAD file. They're adding a second runtime, an MCP server. So I can have my own operation point to an MCP server and say, you'll find this operation on that MCP server, which it tells the LLM what it can do. So
Right.
that's
So it's
something
decoupling, essentially, is how I understand the MCP, is that it's like your agent will know about, or excuse me, your orchestrator will know about the MCP, and all of your tools/agents can be in there for it to like utilize. Is
so
that
kind of
how
so
I should think about it?
think about it like, actually, let me think about it more like this. If I have an API, if I look at Microsoft Graph today, and Microsoft Graph has this huge REST endpoint,
Hmm.
if I want to go through and use Microsoft Graph, I have to use the documentation to figure out how am I supposed to call that. If I wanted to write if I wanted to use a declarative agent to call endpoints on Microsoft Graph, I would have to go write the Open API descriptor document, if it doesn't already exist, to describe how to call Graph and how to get that data out, and and then also map the different operations that it supports. Like Graph can do 1,000 things, and I only want to do 5 of those things in this agent. I'd have to map those operations. What an MCP does, now granted, Microsoft Graph can actually publish their Open API descriptor document for the entire endpoint.
Right, right.
What an MCP does is an MCP server. There's MCP servers and clients. Clients know how to talk to servers. What an MCP server does is the Graph team could create an MCP server that then I would go in and have my own configuration that would have my authentication details in it. And I would then, now an MCP client can connect to that server. And it's kind of like, the way I like to explain it to people is, it's Microsoft and everybody else is calling it like a USB interface to the API. I think of it more like, think about the Matrix. Neo didn't know how to do Kung Fu. Someone plugged in the chip in the back of his head and he said, now I know Kung Fu. An MCP server is like, here's how to do Kung Fu. And it's like, I know how to do Kung Fu. It's kind of like that, so that now the LLM teaches itself what it can do when you tell it, going, you can do that stuff. And it's like, oh, I know how to do this. And so what's cool about it
Right.
then is that I can ask the LLM, hey, I want to get all of the emails for my, with the people I'm having my meetings with today. And the LLM looks at it, looks at the MCP server and comes back and goes, so I need to get emails. I need to get the people who are on those emails. I need to get the meetings. I need to get people who are on those meetings. And then I need to go get the emails from this. And I can see all these things that MCP does. I've now taught myself, these are the things I need. I'm going to come up with a plan and ask for this, ask for this, ask for this, get the data back. And then I'm going to go through and summarize.
I didn't say it well, but I think that's what I meant mentally by decoupling it. Like, all of the knowledge about what can be done is in that MCP server. And so that your orchestration can just say, you know, the stuff that that thing can tell you about. Go
Yeah.
find out about it, versus hard coding in an orchestrator saying, these are your 5 extra tools that you have, and it going, okay, I only have these extra skills, and they're hard coded into my sort of agent all up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. I
Um,
did understand it.
So
Sort
that's
of.
coming down you did understand it. That's coming as a private preview with declarative agents. I don't know what the timeline is for that, but it's coming. The other big thing I'll say about with Copilot before I do a quick switch over to Azure is there are APIs coming for Copilot. So there is a
Yes.
retrieval
Yeah.
API. So if you wanted to do the same thing that Copilot does to get data out of the semantic index, you can do the exact same thing. You can make that call into the semantic index using the retrieval API. It's not available today. It's coming soon. And when you look at the docs, they will tell you that you have to have a Copilot license for this. But I have gotten confirmation from the people that own this at Microsoft. It will be, or the intention is, and things change at Microsoft, names change, plans change. It is the intention that this will be a metered API, meaning you can build your own app that gets data from the semantic index, and you pay per use, but your users don't have to have a license, the all you can eat /full $30 per user license for Copilot to use it. So that'll be big. There are other endpoints. There's an AI Insights one for getting all of the outputs from a meeting when it does like the AI generated notes and involvement and stuff like that. There's also another one that was around chat so that I can have a programmatic chat experience with Copilot. There's all that stuff are just different APIs that are coming. this episode could go on forever, and we have a hard stop. Yeah. So we have a hard stop. So I'm going to go, I said I was going to go rapid fire. I'm going to go really rapid fire on one, two, three, four-ish, eight things with Azure that I was like, oh, that's cool. And if you're listening to this and you want to know more, drop a comment, either drop it on any of the socials or @mention us and @mention the podcast or on the video for YouTube and below the comments. Let us know what you want to hear more about, and we can deep dive into more of this. I'm really big on this. So, really quick, Azure Functions, a lot of stuff around durable functions, and this thing called the Durable Task Scheduler that is currently in preview. You're going to be able to use that to essentially create your own orchestrator so that one agent will then go through and fire off. It'll allow you to have an agent that acts as both an agent and a workflow. An agent is one where I don't really know what it's going to do, and it needs to go like get data and kind of like do on its own thing, it's figure its own plan. Whereas a workflow is, I need you to do this step, and then this step, and then maybe wait for me to have an approve or reject step. But each one of those steps you do are agentic, meaning you're going to go out and get data and kind of plan out a travel plan or go through flights or find like, hotels or anything like that. But the whole thing is a big travel planner that gets all of that stuff back from the flight person or the flight agent and the hotel agent and the activities agent. And then it pulls that stuff together and comes up with a plan and then waits for you to come back and do some stuff. So it's nice and stateful like that. That's out of the box in Azure Functions and Durable Functions and the Durable Task Scheduler. And there's a way now with Azure Functions that when I have an endpoint, I can say it's an MCP action. So it actually can expose itself as an MCP action.
Ooh.
Speaking of that, really cool around API management, that resource that we have in Azure. If you have an existing API that you want to turn into an MCP, you can do that. You just drop in the API, you add in your own authentication to it, and ta-da, your API is now an MCP server. You want to be careful about this. You don't want to expose every single endpoint to it. You want to think about what APIs you're calling and not blowing away quotas, but it makes it really easy to do this and also implement authentication as well to that backend endpoint.
Interesting.
Probably one of I'll save my favorite one for last. Azure AI Foundry had some other really cool things where they were big on observability. And so now you'll have like full observability into the AI-based projects you create using Azure Foundry by leveraging Azure Monitor and having like everything logged and traced. So I can use App Insights to be able to see like the full story of prompts that are being issued and see the responses I'm getting back, how are things performing, et cetera. And then furthermore, it's got deep integration with Microsoft Purview. So your whole security and compliance stuff will all get wrapped up as well, that auditing and all that kind of junk stuff. Shouldn't say junk. It's not I'm a dev. That's not my jam, but I know there's people it's important to. So I get it. My favorite session is by a guy named Pablo Castro. I strongly recommend you take a look at it. It's around Azure AI search. He talked about all of the stuff they've done to improve search for agentic-based or AI-based workflows. They have the concept of agentic retrieval is kind of like what I talked about with Azure Functions, but they have this whole API where when you execute a search, Azure AI Search can go get data from other places and kind of bring it in and do re-ranking and everything and to make it a much better experience. They saw 40% improvement on certain things that they were doing. Really good session at the very beginning of it. Go a little bit deeper in it. My favorite part of it, and I know we were going to try and go deeper on this, but I think we're going to be cut short on time today, is out of the box, Azure AI Search now supports Intra ID. The implications of that is that now when you put content into Azure AI Search, you can give it ACLs. And when you do a query, you can pass across the user who's doing the query and you get automatic security trimming in. Those of you who know how Copilot security trimming works or SharePoint search security trimming works, same. So you can build your own semantic index now.
Wow. That's friggin' cool.
Yeah. They also have like a private or sensitivity labels that are coming in the future as well. It's private preview for that right now.
I have to just quickly second you on that. Again, I was limited in the number of build sessions I could watch, but that search one and seeing Agentic Retrieval API and how that breaks things down was just friggin' cool. So totally worth a watch on that session. And I'm sure you're going to link.
Yeah, he's absolutely awesome. It was BRK 141. There's a couple other ones that are associated with it. All of these things I'm talking about, they're all broken down by category in my big wrap-up article. And at the end of that section where I talk about it, I give you links to the announcement post, any other documentation that works, and then all deep links to the different sessions with build. I've got overall takeaway takes here, but we've got a hard stop. So generally speaking, I'll just say that from a Microsoft 365 side, I'll just sum it up that I'm a little disappointed because I'm not so sure I love the stuff that they're doing and not doing on the dev side. the lack of API focus, which builds on what we talked about in the last episode, episode 6, that you chaired for us, you hosted for us. Microsoft 365 just feels so much more reactionary to the market, not as much as a leader. Whereas on the Azure side, they're just developer focused, developer first, API first, enabling features for developers. They're leading. And I'm just really disappointed that it's these two stories from the same company, that the 365 guys just are not seeing the
Yeah.
opportunity that they have like the Azure guys are doing.
It's weird and it's depressing and it's hard because it's like Two-Face, right? You've got one side that is so pushing the boundaries, so clearly developer focused, have a clear message. Things are so easy to ingest as somebody coming to the platform. And then you have what I thought was platform as a service that is just sinking into software as a service so much. And it's hard. It's hard.
Yep. I don't know if you can, I can't agree with someone anymore that says that M365 is a platform. It's a
Yeah.
SaaS. It's a SaaS
Yeah.
with
It
APIs.
really
That's
is.
it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I would agree with that.
If you guys have any questions about this stuff, you want to go any deeper with it, leave us a comment. We'll dive into it. But again, we got hard stuff today. I've said it enough. We want to move on to our final segment, which is
Yes.
our picks.
Ba-ba-da. All
Mrs.
right.
Turner,
It's
you're up
my
first.
first because you are the host. And my pick is today a cookbook that I just bought myself that I'm very excited about. I do more hosting, like having people over in the summertime than I do the wintertime. That's just sort of the way it goes in New England. And this is it's it's not so much as a cookbook as it is a methodology or thought about putting together big spreads of food that are meant to be sort of picked at or gathered by people. So instead of like plated dinners or even casseroles where somebody, gets a plate of food and they go about eating it, this is more like I have made a board that is a spread of food that is hot food, cold food, dips, picks, nibbles, whatever it is, and that they can have themes. And this woman, Ellie Simone Scott, is not only a chef, but a food stylist. So she just did this board is beautiful, or this book is beautiful to look at, but it's got all these like various themed ways that you can put together food for nibbling with a group of people in a sort of very informal gathering kind of way. And I do this a lot grilling in the summertime myself personally. I have this huge wood platter that used to be like a lazy Susan, but it's ginormous. It's probably 2.5 feet across. And so I'll go out and we'll have people over and I'll have put out a board that has just a bunch of crudité and dips and cheeses and sausage and all sorts of like things on it. And then I'll do a grilled board, which will have grilled vegetables, grilled meats, whatever. And I'll lay them all out with, on these boards. And then I just sit those down and people can come, and if they want to just pick one thing to eat because they're standing and chatting, great. If they want to make a plate, there's plates there. They can put a bunch of things on their plate. It really helps with like food issues too, because there's so many people have so many different like, oh, I don't eat gluten, I don't eat, meat, I only eat fish, whatever. It allows you to sort of create this smorgasbord without going through too much effort. And so I love this as so I got it because I wanted this sort of inspiration ideas thing. And so I was just wanting to put out the idea of think about that for your next party. You don't necessarily have to get this book to do it, but since summer is coming for us in the Northern Hemisphere, it's an idea around how you can do your summer gatherings. So that was my idea.
That's really cool. I like it. I was just clicking through the pictures. That does look really cool.
Right? They're beautiful. Absolutely beautiful.
Julie, I'm in the Northern Hemisphere and I'm in Florida, and I can just tell you, like, we've been in the summer since I think I'm 49 years old. I've been in the summer since I was born 49 years ago.
Understood. So this is a very northern thing then.
Yeah. Okay, you're in the north. If you're in the Northern Hemisphere.
Yes, the north.
Great pick. I'm going to trim mine down to just one pick today. I'm on a pick quota today. I'm going to stick with the theme that I was covering in a couple different things. So I can't remember who sent this to me off the top of my head. Somebody sent it to me and it just blanked on me who sent it. Oh, you sent this to me, I think. Did you send this to me?
Nope, not me.
Okay. Sorry. One of my students did. Jordan, thank you very much. There's somebody built an MCP server for NASA.
Yeah. I see this in this link.
Yeah, I know.
Of
And
course,
it's like
this is right up your
Well, it's right in my alley because a lot of my demos use this for like the NASA, the Mars rovers and the imagery service and NASA rovers. So this
Yeah.
is really cool. The instructions are pretty good about setting it up. If you have Visual Studio Code, there's actually a way you can have like an MCP inspector and you can actually integrate MCPs into VS Code. VS Code is a MCP client. And so you can use that to then use GitHub's Copilot to ask it questions and basically talk to the API in natural language. So that's the benefit of like MCP. It allows you to talk to an API in natural language, and this just kind of walks through how you can do that. So it's pretty slick.
Access to 20 plus NASA data sources.
I know. Sorry, yeah, I'm a little geeked out on this one.
You are definitely geeking out on this.
All right, Julie, it's great to have you back in the United States. You need to get better so that you don't get me sick in a couple weeks.
I won't.
Well, I'm just kidding. You need to get better so you are better.
Yes, that would be good, especially since I have a lot of work to do. All right,
Awesome.
my friend. It was great.
Good to see you, and we will see everybody in the next episode.
Thanks.
Did you like this episode? Please like and share it with your friends. We're on YouTube, Blue Sky, and LinkedIn. You'll find all the links in the video description below. And if you have a question, head over to our site at codedeploygo.live, where you can send it in. Also, sign up for our mailing list on our site at codedeploygo.live to learn about future episodes, opportunities for listeners, and get the show notes from each episode sent straight to your inbox. We'll be back with another episode in 2 weeks.